Some days, Santa Clara just does not feel calm, and honestly, maybe it should not. Today, the 49ers are stepping into a sensitive zone, a public call-out that exposes pride, limits, and locker room tension. A market rumor that could ignite this whole offense. A rookie trying to build value the hard way. And a receiver saga that has already drained this fan base. This is not just another news cycle. This is a real temperature check. If you ride for this team, you can feel when the room gets heavy, when the window gets tighter, and when every decision starts carrying serious weight. Hit that like button and ride with me. Now, this whole Donte Whitner and Ji'Ayir Brown situation hits a nerve that every 49ers fan understands, even if we do not always want to admit it. There is a big difference between holding someone to a championship standard and tearing down a player like he was the only reason an entire defense lost its edge. Whitner has the resume. He played the position. He made Pro Bowls. He knows what it feels like to live deep in the secondary with the entire game in front of you and one mistake turning into a touchdown in a heartbeat. So when he says Brown has to improve in the deep half, in the middle of the field, with pre-snap communication, reading formations, and breaking with the right angles, I listen. That part matters. The 49ers cannot walk into a pressure season acting like the safety room is flawless. It is not. But the way this entire thing became public bothers me. Whitner said Brown called him and Richard Sherman after the criticism, trying to push back on how they spoke about his game. And then the conversation almost turned into a personality trial, with Whitner saying Brown was delusional for believing he played at a high level. That is where it changes for me. Because analysis is one thing. Talking down to a player in public, especially a player from your own Niners circle, is something different. And here's the part a lot of people skip because they are already angry. Brown was not a complete disaster. He allowed the lowest yards per target of his career, the lowest completion percentage of his career, and had the most tackles for loss of his career. Those signs do not erase the missed tackles. They do not erase the problems when he had to play several different roles. But they do show there is a player there. There is material. There is somebody who, with more pass rush up front and a cleaner role, can respond. What I want from Brown now is not a post, not a clapback, not a back and forth with a former player. I want work. Sharper processing, a stronger 2026, enough humility to accept correction, and enough pride to not collapse under the noise. Because playing safety for the 49ers carries real weight. This defense has had legends, strong voices, and brutal standards. But a high standard also demands smart development. Whitner may be right in some areas. Brown may also be tired of becoming an easy target when the pass rush in front of him did not help anybody. The truth is somewhere inside that collision. And if San Francisco is serious, it will use this tension as fuel, not as a distraction. Brown has to prove it on the field. Whitner has to remember that the best criticism is not always the loudest. It is the kind that actually helps a player get better. And then comes the type of possibility that makes every fan stop for 2 seconds before answering with logic. A.J. Brown in the 49ers offense. Just the image feels heavy. Mike Evans on one side, Brown bringing force, Christian Kirk working inside, Dejon Stribling arriving as a new piece, Ricky Pearsall still in the mix, and Kyle Shanahan staring at a board filled with size, routes, explosion, and physical stress. That is not some small idea. That is the kind of scenario that makes opposing defenses lose sleep. Jason La Canfora put San Francisco in the mix as a possible destination if the Eagles really move toward trading Brown before training camp. He also mentioned the Patriots, Chiefs, and even the Jaguars as possible fits. So the 49ers are not alone in this conversation. And the part that makes your imagination start running is simple. If Philadelphia would accept something like a 2027 pick plus a player, this stops feeling like pure fantasy and becomes the dangerous question every contender has to ask. How far do you go to make an offense terrifying? But defending the 49ers also means not getting hypnotized by the name. San Francisco just rebuilt the receiver room. Jawan Jennings is gone. Kendrick Bourne is gone. Evans and Kirk arrived. Stribling came in with a high draft pick. There is a plan there. There is future money to consider, even with strong cap space right now. There is roster logic that cannot just be bulldozed because a star talent suddenly appears on the horizon. But let's be real. If injuries start hitting before camp, if the Brandon Aiyuk situation keeps pushing the team toward a split, if Shanahan feels like he still needs a receiver who can win through contact and change the geometry of the field, then this conversation becomes a little less crazy. Brown is physical, competitive, dangerous after the catch, and capable of turning third downs into punishment for cornerbacks. In January, that matters. My emotional read is this: I do not think San Francisco needs to sprint toward this move today, but I would not laugh it off either. Average teams look at the roster and say, good enough. Teams trying to rip a Super Bowl out of the NFC ask whether there is still one bigger punch available. And if Brown really becomes available at a manageable price, John Lynch at least has to pick up the phone. Jaden Duggar arrives in that part of the draft where nobody should promise a miracle, but nobody should treat him like just another offseason body either. 5th round, linebacker, crowded room, likely path through special teams. It sounds simple, but for a team like the 49ers, these day 3 picks are where a season can find quiet answers before trouble turns into an emergency. League history makes that clear. Linebackers picked between spots 100 and 200 since 2010 usually do not start much right away. 3 starts, 29 tackles on average. The first impact usually comes somewhere else, on special teams, where a player has to hit, run, cover space, and prove he deserves to dress every Sunday. That is the real point for Duggar. If he cannot get on the field through special teams or steal real defensive snaps, the chance of becoming just another missed flyer grows fast. And it is not like there are no good examples. Dre Greenlaw came from that draft range and became a massive piece for San Francisco. Matt Milano, Danny Trevathan, Telvin Smith, Devondre Campbell, Henry To'o all remind you that a linebacker taken after the spotlight can still become a real starter. But almost all of them had one thing in common. They showed up early somehow. Maybe not as stars, maybe not with 600 defensive snaps, but they showed up. That is what I want to see from Duggar. He does not need to walk in pounding his chest like he already owns the position. He needs repeatable value. Cover kicks with controlled violence. Stay disciplined in the return game. Understand angles. Stop missing cheap tackles. Force the coaching staff to trust him when the roster is hurt, tired, or stuck in a short rotation. The 49ers linebacker room has too many names to hand anybody anything for free, and that is a good thing. Real competition shows who can handle the standard. But Niners fans, tell me this in the comments. Do you see Duggar as a future roster steal, or as a bet that first has to survive special teams? Because that kind of detail does not feel huge in May. But in November, it can save a possession, a game, or a season. And now we get to the most exhausting part, maybe the saddest part, because Brandon Aiyuk used to be the kind of player who made fans imagine years of stability in this offense. Clean routes, willing blocking, separation at the right time, the kind of fit that felt built for Kyle Shanahan. That is why this saga is so frustrating. It is not just because there is drama. It is because there was real football before the tension swallowed everything. The word around this situation is that the 49ers may still try to trade him before simply ending his run. But that looks harder by the day. John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan have already signaled they are in no rush to release Aiyuk for nothing. And that makes sense. If there is any chance to get something back, even a small chance, you try. This roster is not in the business of competitive charity. But the market sees the same problem San Francisco sees. Complicated contract, serious knee injury, time away from the field, voided guarantees, built-up noise, and real questions about what he looks like physically when he returns. And then there is the public behavior. Aiyuk posting a picture with money on Instagram might not change anything inside the building, but it changes the feeling around the fan base. After months of uncertainty, after a relationship that kept getting more strained, after an extension that was supposed to end the story and instead became another chapter, that kind of move does not bring anybody closer. It feels like a jab. It feels like a need for attention. It feels like one more small detail added to a story that lost its lightness a long time ago. I am not going to erase what Aiyuk did well for the 49ers. That would be unfair. He mattered. He produced. He had moments as a true number one receiver and helped this offense operate at a high level. But defending San Francisco right now means saying something that might sting. This team cannot stay emotionally tied to a player who no longer seems aligned with the project. Brock Purdy needs stability. Shanahan needs to install his offense without answering saga questions every week. The receiver room needs to look forward, with Mike Evans, Christian Kirk, Stribling, Pearsall, and whoever else earns space on the field. If someone offers something reasonable, great. Close the door with a return. If nobody does, at some point the 49ers have to choose operational peace. And peace, for a contender, is an asset too. It does not show up in the box score. It does not become a highlight, but it changes the building. Aiyuk could have been continuity. Right now, he looks closer to relief. And when a franchise reaches that point with a talented player, the loss already happened before the official exit. At the end of the day, this leaves one clear feeling. Talent is not enough if the environment is not aligned. Brown has to turn criticism into a response. A.J. Brown is a massive temptation, but it only makes sense if the price does not hurt the plan. Duggar has to earn respect in the invisible details, and Aiyuk has become a story that may need to end so the offense can breathe. The 49ers still have power, still have a roster, still have a coach, still have a window. But real contenders do not live on nostalgia. They live on firm decisions. If you are feeling this season with me, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and stay locked into our coverage.